Hello dear friends, welcome to today's video. Even if you don't know the name of any military plane, you must have seen one of these planes somewhere in a movie or photo. The special shape of this bomber has made it one of the most well-known military aircraft in the world, which has played a role in several scenes in famous Hollywood movies. Its name is B-2 Spirit. Although it is not the only plane designed and built with this shape and image, it is known as a bird's wing. While other airplanes have a body and a rear tail, B-2 Spirit has only one wide wing and is very short and looks exactly like Batman. There is a tactical reason behind this particular design choice. Let's go back to the mid-1970s. Military aircraft designers had invented new ways to build their planes so that they could stay hidden from enemy radar and even sometimes from missiles. This was what was known as the beginning of stealth. When talking about stealth in this context, they mean technology with low visibility. In other words, exactly what many of these early radar-evading planes needed in order to be less visible was a plane with a metal frame body that can detect radar signals. Attracting and diverting them in another direction is considered a valuable thing. In this case, less signal would return to the radar and make the plane less visible. When the plane can fly without being seen on the radar, it can easily approach the strategic targets and at the same time escape from the missiles and stay safe. Of course, it means that stealth planes or any other stealth vehicles are not invisible at all. You can still see them with the naked eye. There are other ways to detect them, such as infrared scanners or sound trackers. But most stealth vehicles can fly without being seen or tracked, especially at night. Technology began to advance in the detection of stealth aircraft, so in response, newer planes were needed. At the time when the B-2 bomber was being designed and built, the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union was heating up, and the continuous development of new terrifying weapons by the United States and the Soviet Union was turning the shadow of nuclear war into a threat. America had to face the very serious possibility that its conflict with Russia would increase with a nuclear war. Anyway, this atomic bomb had to be dropped on the Soviets with a device that the Soviets could not detect. And it was exactly here that the construction of the Bay bomber started. This is exactly what B-2 Spirit was designed for. The project of building a bomber with advanced technology, which is also called ATB, started in the 1980s and during the presidency of Jimmy Carter. This was the time when Nosher Guadia was working at Northrop Grumman. They know Guadia as one of the designers of the B-2 Spirit bomber, and they say that he did great work in the radar evasion department. But this person was imprisoned later. Stay with me until the end of the video to find out what was the reason behind the imprisonment of the designer of the B-2 Spirit bomber. And of course, like the video right now, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do so. The first goal in the development of the stealth bomber was to give it the necessary characteristics to bypass the air defenses of the Soviet Union. Anyway, the Soviet Union was not weak. It had advanced and intercepted the old bombers in the sky. So in order to avoid being intercepted by Soviet radar signals that are used in detection, B-2 would redirect the radar and effectively deflect it away from him and actually fly under the radar. Now, how exactly are you? This was due to its design. Bomber B-2 Sprite has large and complex curved shapes on its surface, which allows it to be invisible. This unique shape and structure meant that the B-2 Sprite could not use the usual vertical fins that balance a winged aircraft. Instead, it used flaps on the trailing edges of its wings to help control roll and roll. Now, what was Nosher Guadia doing in the middle, and what exactly was his role in the design of B-2? Guadia was partly responsible for making B-2 harder to spot. First of all, he was the one who made this huge bomber really fly. The B-2s were too big. Each of the 20 operational B-2 Spirit bombers and an additional experimental model that had already been built were all built by NoSoup. These were approximately 21 centimeters and 0.3 meters long, 5 centimeters and 1,800 meters high, and 50 centimeters and 4,300 meters of wingspan, and they had to carry about 18,144 kilograms of ammunition. Or they could lift, for example, 80 bombs guided by GPS, each of which weighs 227 kilos, or 16 nuclear bombs, each weighing 1,089 kilo. When we add the size and weight of the plane itself to the amount of ammunition it was carrying, we understand that B-2 must have extremely powerful engines to not only be able to fly high, but also to do this without the risk of being seen. The problem was that they could not use afterburner engines to add this amount of weight, because they would cause infrared radiation. This means that any aircraft that moves with these engines will probably be detected by infrared scanners or infrared-guided missiles. This is where Noshirguadia enters the scene, and he had to look for a way to reduce the disadvantages of B-2. It seems that he proposed a creative idea for the bomber's propulsion system. It was supposed to work with 4 turbofan engines instead of afterburner engines. Turbofans are a more advanced type of turbojet engines that work by sucking air in and compressing it. This compressed air is later used by combining with aircraft fuel in a combustion process. Turbofan engines have large fans that work with the same principle, with the difference that only part of the air that enters the engine is used for combustion. The rest goes out as smoke. In general, turbofan engines are not as noisy as turbojet engines, and in addition, they are more powerful, which makes them ideal for flying an extremely heavy bomber that needs to remain hidden. Although B-2 could not fly at supersonic speed due to the lack of afterburner engines, but the works of Guadiana made B-2 have a much greater radius of action for combat. Able to cover a greater distance and reach enemy targets before running out of fuel to return to base. Guardia also made several other designs for B-2, including a secret part at the back where there were outlets and was specially designed to cool the exhaust smoke from the turbofan engines. The considerable cost of developing and working with B-2 Spirit caused a series of controversies among members of the US Congress at the time. On average, the development of test engineering and finally the production of B-2 Spirit cost about $2,130 million. If we take into account the inflation, the construction cost can be about $4 billion now. At that time, the construction of each of these planes cost approximately $740 million. It means B-2 is one of the most expensive planes in the world. While their original plan was to produce 132 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, these delays slowed down the project and made it more expensive. It should also be added that by the 1990s, the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, for which the B-2 was being built, was over, and there was no longer a need for a stealth aircraft for airstrikes and nuclear bombing deep inside the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union officially collapsed, American lawmakers no longer saw the need for so many expensive airplanes. Finally, in the late 1980s and early 1990s, the purchase of B-2 by the U.S. Air Force from Northrop Grumman decreased from 132 to 21, of which only one was a test, and 20 operational bombers during B-2 Spirit service period was different for him. He performed important operations and had his own problems, but there was nothing that reduced his value, because he had very high abilities. He had spent many years designing this bomber and had implemented his own ideas, but he was not welcomed as he should have been, and he left Northrop Company, which had not welcomed the bomber. In October 2015, Guardia was arrested by federal agents. They searched his house. In total, his house was searched twice, until on October 26th, Noshir Guardia was arrested on the charge of leaking confidential defense information to unauthorized persons, and many of those confidential information were related to the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Let's go to the main story of Guardia, the designer of B-2. Guardia started his own consulting company when he quit his job at Nurse Rob. His goal was to pocket a lot of money because he knew he's right more. He felt that his expertise was more than what he was paid for. He launched a company under his own name, NS Guardia Corporation. He was consulting in the company, and his work, according to his own words, was research and development of engineering services, technical consulting, and any business related to him. But in fact, he was selling confidential information that he had obtained during the construction of B-2 Sprite. Guardia sent an informative fax to 3 different countries. The fax contained a top-secret U.S. Air Force document detailing technology that Guardia had developed for the B-2 Spirit bomber, revealing how the B-2 Spirit could avoid infrared detection. This was not the only thing that Guardia had revealed. He made several trips to China between 2003 and 2005. These days, if you have heard the name of Chinese fighters, there is something called China Do G20. In the construction and development of this fighter, B-2 radar evasion information has been used, the same information that Guardia had leaked to them. Of course, apart from China, he had also sold information to Switzerland, Israel, and Germany. Finally, the Guardia court was held in the year 2011, and in January 2011, he received his verdict. 32 years of prison means that he will be released in February 2032, and it is interesting to know that this is the same year that the B-2 Spirit bomber is going to be replaced and retired from service. This was the story of B-2 Spirit and its designer, who ended up in jail. In our channel, we express military content in a different way. Don't forget to subscribe, dear ones.